Intro, setting the stage. Have you ever felt the fire of anger burn through your chest? That moment when someone says something careless, when life twists unfairly, when everything inside you screams for control, but all you can do is react? Jordan Peterson often says, "You cannot control the world, but you can control how you engage with it." In this video, we dive deep into one of the hardest lessons of Stoic philosophy, emotional mastery. The art of never letting anger or frustration dictate your actions, your peace, or your identity. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about transforming it, turning chaos into calm, reaction into reason, pain into power. Because the truth is, the world will never stop giving you reasons to be upset. People will still misunderstand you. Life will still throw problems at you. But if you learn to master your response, no one and nothing can ever truly control you again. Jordan Peterson, blending ancient Stoicism with modern psychology, teaches that emotional control is not cold detachment. It is the foundation of true strength. The ability to face suffering, betrayal, and adversity without collapsing or becoming bitter. It's the discipline to rise above petty conflicts and find clarity when others lose themselves in rage. This journey begins not by changing the world, but by changing how you interpret it. The Stoics taught, we suffer not from things themselves, but from our judgments about them. And Peterson extends this truth into modern life, reminding us that our emotions are not enemies to be destroyed, but signals to be understood. So, let's begin this transformation. Let's uncover how to never again get angry or upset. Not by avoiding emotion, but by mastering it through wisdom, understanding, and inner discipline. Understanding the root of anger. Jordan Peterson often points out that anger is not purely destructive. It's a signal, a call from your inner world that something you value has been violated. But here's the paradox. While anger alerts you to injustice, it also blinds you to truth. It takes a valid emotion and turns it into chaos if left unchecked. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Seneca wrote that anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. And Peterson echoes this in his lectures, reminding us that unchecked anger poisons the soul before it ever reaches its target. Think about it. Most people believe anger is about other people, what they did, what they said, how they treated you. But the real battlefield isn't out there, it's inside your mind. Every time you get angry, you're giving someone else the power to control your emotional state. You're handing them the keys to your peace. Peterson would tell his students, before you correct the world, put your own house in order. This is the first step to emotional freedom. You cannot expect others to act perfectly. You cannot demand life to be fair, but you can demand that you remain composed, alert, and rational. To master anger, you must understand it, not suppress it, not explode, but observe it. Ask yourself, why does this hurt me? What expectation was violated? Anger often comes from the illusion of control, the false belief that people should behave according to your rules. When they don't, your ego burns. But here's the liberation. When you accept that others act according to their own nature, not yours, you no longer take offense. You begin to see that anger doesn't change others. It only consumes you. You start to realize that emotional control is not weakness. It's the highest form of power. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you're proving that your mind belongs to you, not to the world around you. And in that pause, in that moment of awareness, you gain something extraordinary. Freedom from emotional slavery. The Stoic shift. From reaction to reflection. Imagine this. You're insulted by someone. Maybe they mock your work, your appearance, your beliefs. Instinctively, anger flares up. Your heart rate spikes, your ego feels attacked. But if you pause for even a second and remember what Marcus Aurelius said, when someone does you wrong, it is because they believe they are right. Something shifts. You begin to see that their behavior reflects their own confusion, not your worth, and this insight is transformative. Jordan Peterson teaches that maturity begins the moment you stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and start asking, "What can I learn from how I'm reacting?" That subtle change moves you from victimhood to sovereignty. You no longer live at the mercy of others' behavior. You live guided by your own principles. This is where Stoicism and modern psychology unite beautifully. Stoicism tells us to focus only on what we can control: our thoughts, our actions, our attitude. Psychology adds that by rewiring our cognitive responses, we can literally reshape the emotional patterns in our brain. You can train yourself to respond with calm instead of rage. But here's the secret Peterson emphasizes. You don't achieve calm by pretending not to care. You achieve it by caring about something deeper: truth, order, meaning. When you live with higher purpose, petty insults lose their weight. You stop being tossed by every emotional wave because your identity is anchored in something eternal. The Stoics called this ataraxia, a state of unshakable serenity. Peterson calls it responsibility-based peace, the inner strength that comes from knowing that you are living rightly, that your actions align with your conscience. So when someone offends you, when life frustrates you, when chaos threatens your peace, stop and remember the world is testing your discipline. Every irritation is an invitation to rise higher. Every conflict is an opportunity to practice mastery. Peterson's voice reminds us, if you can bear the weight of your own suffering with grace, you become unstoppable. And that's the essence of never again being angry or upset. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about becoming the kind of person who transforms pain into wisdom. The hidden cost of anger feels powerful. That surge of energy that convinces you you're standing up for yourself, defending your pride, asserting control. But Jordan Peterson warns us, what feels like power is often poison in disguise. Every time you indulge in anger, you make a trade. You sacrifice long-term strength for short-term release. You may win the argument, but you lose your peace. You may silence the other person, but you awaken the chaos within yourself. Peterson describes anger as a primitive response, a leftover from our evolutionary past, when survival depended on dominance and defense. But in the modern world, most of our battles are not physical. They're psychological. Yet we still carry that same ancient instinct, ready to fight over words, opinions, and ideas. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They observed that anger rarely changes others. It only reveals how little control we have over ourselves. When Marcus Aurelius was betrayed, insulted, or mocked, he didn't lash out. He reminded himself, the offender sins against himself, not against me. That mindset is liberation. Because when you realize that someone else's cruelty says more about their suffering than your worth, you're free. You no longer need to defend your ego. You can observe their behavior with calm detachment. Peterson echoes this truth in his lectures when he says, if you cannot control your temper, you are not strong, you are a slave to emotion. True power isn't found in aggression. It's found in composure. It's the ability to stand in the middle of chaos and still remain unmoved, focused, rational. Every act of anger leaves a residue, a kind of emotional scar that lingers in the nervous system. The more often you give in to it, the deeper it carves itself into your personality. Soon, anger becomes not just something you feel, but something you are. That's why Stoicism teaches, you must treat anger as an infection of the soul, not to deny its existence, but to heal it through awareness, discipline, and understanding. You must train yourself to recognize anger the moment it arises, to breathe, to step back, and to ask, is this reaction serving me or enslaving me? Because once you learn that, once you see anger as a teacher rather than a weapon, you begin the real transformation. The moment you stop reacting, you start evolving. The discipline of detachment. In one of his most profound statements, Jordan Peterson said, "You must be willing to let go of who you were to become who you could be." Nowhere is this truer than in your relationship with emotion. To master anger, you must let go of your attachment to being right. You must detach from the illusion that your peace depends on other people's behavior, because it doesn't. It depends solely on the structure of your own mind. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means understanding that you don't need to participate in every conflict offered to you. You don't have to respond to every insult, argue with every critic, or match every provocation. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence. The silence of someone who refuses to let external chaos disrupt internal order. Peterson often uses a powerful metaphor. Your life is a house. If you invite chaos in, it will rearrange your furniture. Anger is that chaos. It rearranges your mind, disorients your thoughts, and turns your peace into disorder. But when you practice detachment, you lock the door. You protect your inner space from emotional intruders. This discipline requires courage, because ego will scream at you to react. It will whisper, "Don't let them disrespect you." But you must learn to answer. Their words cannot reach the level of my peace. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. In his meditations, he reminded himself to expect rudeness, arrogance, betrayal, yet he chose to remain kind and centered. He understood that emotional control is not passive. It's the ultimate act of power. And this is where Stoicism and Peterson's teachings meet perfectly. Both remind us that freedom isn't found in external control, but in internal mastery. You cannot govern the world, but you can govern yourself. And that's enough, because once you do, the world loses its ability to shake you. So when you're insulted, criticized, or ignored, pause and breathe. Ask yourself, is this situation worth losing my inner peace? 99% of the time the answer will be no, and that's when you realize something profound. You don't have to react. You can observe. You don't have to fight. You can understand. You don't have to prove your strength. You can embody it, transforming pain into power. Here lies the secret that Stoics and Jordan Peterson both understood. Pain is not your enemy. It's your teacher. When you feel angry or upset, that emotion is trying to show you something. It's exposing a wound and an insecurity, a fear, an unmet expectation. Instead of resisting it, you can use it. You can transform that raw emotion into insight. Ask yourself, what is this anger trying to teach me? Maybe it's teaching you patience. Maybe it's showing you that you care too much about the approval of others. Maybe it's revealing that you've neglected your boundaries or allowed someone too much power over your emotions. Peterson often says, the purpose of life is not happiness and its meaning. And part of finding meaning is learning how to integrate suffering into your growth. Instead of wishing the world were easier, you become stronger. Instead of blaming others, you take responsibility for your reactions. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a process and a daily discipline. Every time you pause before reacting, you build emotional muscle. Every time you choose understanding over anger, you reclaim power from your lower self. Think of anger as fire. You can use it to burn or to forge. One destroys, the other creates. When you direct that energy into purpose, into building, improving, creating, you become unstoppable. The Stoics practiced this by journaling their thoughts every night. Not to complain, but to reflect. Peterson suggests the same. Write, analyze, confront your own patterns. Because you cannot fix what you refuse to see. When you turn pain into reflection, reflection into wisdom, and wisdom into action, you evolve beyond anger. You begin to embody calm confidence and the kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself. And that's the ultimate victory. To live in a world of chaos and remain untouchable. Not because you're cold, but because you're wise. The power of responsibility and inner order. Jordan Peterson often says, you must take responsibility for your own being. Because without responsibility there can be no meaning. And this is the moment where emotional mastery becomes more than self-control. It becomes self-respect. Responsibility is the antidote to chaos. When you stop blaming others for how you feel, you begin to realize that you are not a victim of emotion. You are its creator. Every feeling, every reaction, every outburst stems from how you choose to interpret the world. The Stoics knew this. They believed that nothing external can disturb the soul unless the soul permits it. Epictetus, once a slave, said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Think about that. A man in chains, living under tyranny, claiming freedom through control of his own mind. That's what Jordan Peterson means when he speaks of order emerging from responsibility. To never again be angry or upset, you must stop outsourcing your peace. The moment you say, "They made me angry," you surrender your power. No one can make you anything. You choose how to respond. When you accept this truth, your life changes. You stop expecting people to be perfect. You stop demanding the world to cater to your emotions. Instead, you rise above circumstance, guided by principles, not impulses. Peterson reminds us that chaos begins where responsibility ends. So if you want peace, bring order into your life. Organize your space. Structure your habits. Discipline your mind. Because when your inner world is in order, the outer world cannot easily shake you. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent. It's about developing the maturity to understand that every frustration can be transformed into clarity, every setback into strength, every insult into insight. When you live responsibly, when you take ownership of your peace, anger has nowhere to hide. You don't need revenge, validation, or victory in arguments. You need only alignment between your values, your behavior, and your thoughts. And that alignment is where real calm lives. The calm within the storm. Imagine you're standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is howling, the rain is relentless. Everything around you is chaos. Most people panic, trying to control the storm, shouting at the clouds, cursing the wind. But the wise man, he stands still. Because he knows the storm will pass, but his response defines who he is. That's the essence of Stoicism. That's what Jordan Peterson teaches. Stability within instability. Life will always bring storms, betrayal, injustice, failure, rejection, misunderstanding. But if you've built a fortress within your soul, none of it can destroy you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved and the raging of the sea falls still around it." That's what emotional mastery feels like, to stay grounded no matter what chaos surrounds you. Peterson calls this psychological strength, the capacity to face reality exactly as it is, painful, unfair, unpredictable, and still not collapse. To hold your ground with grace, you stop needing the world to change for you to be at peace. You carry peace with you, and when you reach that point, something miraculous happens. You stop resenting people. You stop replaying arguments. You stop letting anger define your story. Because you understand everyone is fighting their own invisible battle. Their anger, their cruelty, their pettiness. It's not about you. It's a reflection of their own suffering. That realization breeds compassion, not resentment. And compassion, Peterson says, is the higher form of strength, because it requires understanding, restraint, and courage. So when someone hurts you, instead of reacting, remember this: your calm is proof that you've evolved. Your peace is evidence that you've won the inner war. Because the goal was never to live a life without difficulty, it was to become someone unshakable within difficulty. The unshakable soul. Let's return to the question we began with. How can you never again be angry or upset with anyone or anything? The answer isn't to escape emotion. It's to rise above it. When you understand that your reactions are your responsibility, when you realize that anger solves nothing but self-destruction, when you train your mind to pause, breathe, and reflect instead of explode, you step into the realm of wisdom. Jordan Peterson teaches that meaning emerges when we take ownership of our lives, when we bear our burdens with dignity and face chaos with order. And the Stoics remind us that peace is not the absence of problems but the mastery of response. So the next time you feel that familiar spark of anger, stop. Don't react. Don't defend. Don't retaliate. Instead, watch, understand, choose. You are not your anger. You are the awareness behind it, the calm observer, the conscious architect of your emotions, the one who chooses stillness over rage, growth over bitterness, and wisdom over reaction. Because the most powerful person in any room is the one who cannot be provoked, the one whose peace is not negotiable, the one who has conquered the hardest battlefield, the mind. So, as Jordan Peterson might remind us, face your suffering voluntarily. Order your soul. Take responsibility for your being, and in doing so you will become stronger than anger itself. When you master your emotions, you don't just control your life, you own it. You become the stillness in the storm, the strength in the struggle, and the peace the world desperately needs.